Nun, the primordial, the Kemetic god associated with the watery mass that is the source of all aspects of divine and earthly existence. So Nun is the primordial god of Kemet, and an interesting deity because this is a direct link to the Ogdoad, which is represented in Western African cultures primarily. One of the 8 deities of the Ogdoad representing chaos, he is coupled with the goddess Naunet and appears in anthropomorphic form with the body of a humanoid and the head of a frog. He is often depicted either carrying a solar bark through the sun disk, and he may appear greeting the rising sun in the guise of baboon, or otherwise symbolized by the presence of a sacred Citroen or a lake, as examples are the sanctuary at Karnak and Dandera. Being the primordial waters, Nun is the name given to the state of being before the first existence of time, and is literally becomes a metaphor for the process of creation. Described in An's mythology cycle as the waters, Nun lies inert, unending, and indefinite, and it is until Team rises and throws off the waters and begins creation, so the myth tells us. Under that philosophy, Nun is potential energy. He is the primordial soup from which the self-creation draws the necessary materials to create its initial children, who were Shu and Tefnut, of course representing air and moisture, or in the biblical term, these would be the firmament. And then next came the creation of Geb, who was the earth, and Nut, who was the sky, and thus beginning the cycle of reality in which humans find themselves a working part of. Some myths state that eventually all things will return to Nun when they are complete, and others state that Nun is a continual state of non-being, which continues to manifest itself. So Nun, when personified, is referred to as the father of fathers and the mother of mothers, representing, a mass duality there. Now, Nun remains, again, massively important, not only because of this link between the Enid and the Ogdoad, so 2 completely different pantheons that link to similar character, but also is that the process of creation, again, beckons back to the idea of the singularity. So we like to look at belief systems that start off with the singularity and represent through his children the idea of cosmic expansion. Idea of the creation of Shu and Tefnut for existence, representing air and moisture, has been seen by some as the coalition of the initial gases. So when we had atoms forming and you're creating hydrogen molecules, you're creating oxygen molecules, and then the process that we would call the creation of Geb and Nut, the earth and the sky, is again the as planets begin to coalesce from this mass of both gases and solids that were in existence following the initial expansion. This follows in that, and from this process we again get life. So this mythology to me sounds very similar to what we would think when we think of the idea of cosmic expansion as our current scientific community has explained it to us. And the process is very similar from the very beginning of creation and singularity to finally the creation of a planetary body with an atmosphere and water of course would be key to life. So we can see how this concept has been with us since the early days, some of the earliest mythologies. And while Nun was never represented as a worship deity, so Nun never had a sanctuary that was really focused on Nun. Nun has never had followers because, again, this is before the creation of the gods that would come to be deified here on Earth. So Nun as a concept is more in the background and remains more of a myth and less of a personified deity. This explains really what these people thought about the process by which we got here, and it reflects what our modern scientific community says now. And other mythologies speak to the same type of creation process. So again, this is the god Nun, who is almost a forgotten Nun, who is the primordial, who is the source of all life. And this is the beliefs, again, that tie into the Kemetic and Kushite philosophy. And as I pointed out, this philosophy comes from Canis Major, so I'm attributing again this god Nun and the connection to the Ennead, and of course the pantheon that comes from Canis Major, or what we would call the Dog Star. So again, thank you for joining us. Please feel below your interpretations, your inputs, as we continue to grow our knowledge set about this mythology and how it connects to other myths around the world.